Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today in today's episode of Beyond Connections, My Trades Market Roundup, and this is an avenue where investors can ask their burning questions to us analysts. I am Rainier, and I am joined by our fellow analysts, Bess, Herman, and our technical analyst, Isaiah. So I guess to kick things off, well, today it's March 30, and tomorrow is going to be the end of quarter one. And so far, what we've seen in the PSE index, it's been, I think it's up 1.2% based on today's close. And it hasn't been the easiest ride. I guess back in February, we saw highs of 7,200. And we've seen it fall off as of late. And but of course, we still have some of the gainers so far in the market. So, what do you guys think of the first quarter so far?
For well, tomorrow is the last day of the first quarter, so maybe we can expect a bit of window dressing. If that happens, maybe it may be an opportunity to take profits or lighten up, and then reassess your portfolios when the start of the new quarter comes um, next week, and also with the upcoming um, Holy Week holidays. There might be a little there might be less volume in the market next week. So yeah, that might be a time. It might be an opportunity to lighten up by
Mm.
tomorrow or even next week.
Yeah, and also we're on the last stretch of the earning
Mhm.
season for Q4. So I think just maybe just a handful of companies are left to hold their briefings until next week. I think mga tatlo na lang siguro, no? Tatlo na lang.
Oh yeah, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, so I think next week we have CNPF as the last one to hold their briefing, no?
Yeah,
Is
so
that
far
correct?
for
Yeah.
April 3. Then today, later we have Monday, and then tomorrow one of our I guess positive outlooks is Macro Asia. And so far, si Mac naman, we've seen Cebu Pacific yesterday announce their earnings. Earnings were pretty good naman, especially to the passenger side. Although si Cebu Pacific, they still saw net losses
Mm.
because of high fuel prices and the unfavorable forex. So with that indication, we might see some positive news coming from Macro Asia.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, going back, we have yet to ask Isaiah, our technical analyst, what his views are for the market in general.
Oh well, just looking at the index, I think it's we're just watching this support 6060. Looking for this support to hold over the next few weeks.
Mm.
So hopefully this level holds, and um, hopefully finance can push higher above this 6360 level.
Siguro connected to what Des mentioned earlier about the window dressing, I think it's possible that some of it is already happening now. If you look at the index companies, a bunch of index companies closed at their highs. So I think that's indicative of some window dressing efforts by some companies, and we expect to see some more by tomorrow. Um,
So while we wait for your questions to come in, one of the biggest news this week,
hmm.
Herman, was the buy-in
Ah,
of MPI
grabe,
on
sobrang
in SPNEC. So what can you
yeah,
say?
sobrang surprising na kasi I mean we all know that si MPI has been looking for acquisitions now, and they've already shared their intention of diversifying out of regulated industries because they I think they somehow want to reduce yung discount dun sa valuation ng stock nila. Kasi normally kapag heavily regulated yung business, medyo pigil yung yung price increase ng mga products na ino-offer. So medyo pigil siya kasi kailangan ng government approval. So they want to diversify out of that. And I don't think anyone expected na they would invest on in Spinec. So yeah, sobrang nakagulat siya for me. And also maybe one thing also that's very noteworthy for the investors is the purchase price, which MPI bought a 16% stake at 1.25 per share, which is I think a significant discount at the market price when the disclosure was announced. Although for us, MPI is a strategic shareholder, no, and we see them as holding the company for a long period. So as what we discussed in the team, MPI is coming in as a long-term investor, not just as a hedge fund who is looking to make a quick buck in a short period of time. So they're in for the long haul. They're in to grow the business. So for us, the purchase price shouldn't be the headline. No? Shouldn't be the headline. It's really the partnership. So there, I think we expect more development from this news moving forward, and I think the partnership should help boost Espinec towards realizing its huge pipeline of projects. So for us, it's a huge positive for Espinec.
Oh, can I get
Yeah.
ahead of our viewers? I just have a question.
Mhm.
Kasi, diba, I think we know the MVP group also owns a stake in Meralco.
Yeah.
And we remember that SPNEC also secured some contracts with Meralco. So are we seeing any possible synergies between the two, like si Meralco and SPNEC?
Yeah, definitely. I think yun yung ano no, yung I think ayun yung na-price in dun sa purchase price din eh. Kaya siya 125 kasi a lot of value should be realized din dun sa synergies that will that Espinec can derive from the partnership, yung synergies with MPI's other subsidiaries. So one of this is yung stake ni MPI kay Meralco. So as we mentioned in today's short takes, it should facilitate a smoother closing of future supply contracts by Espinec. Although syempre, it should still be held on arm's length basis, no. So dapat meron pa ring CSPs, no, to make sure that the consumers will be provided with the cheapest electricity. Although we've always mentioned din naman na Espinec, that's the strength of Espinec eh, yung cost leadership nila because of their yung capex advantage. So on a per megawatt basis, Espinec has one of the lowest capex on a per megawatt basis. So that should allow them to price their electricity at a lower level. So it also should also boost their chances of securing CSPs with Meralco. So ayun, I think that's one synergy that should provide a lot of value for Espinec and MPI. So it should be a win-win situation.
On a technical view, what do you think about SPNEC? And maybe MPI na din.
That's a-
And while we're waiting, feel free to post your questions, guys.
Can you show the chart?
Can we show the chart for SPNEC?
Oh, wala siya. Oh, okay.
Mm,
Well,
okay.
clearly it's a little bit. Well, clearly it's in an uptrend. See, Espinel. It's a little bit overbought now. So if you can try to buy it closer to the 50-day MA, which is at about there's some support here. So go at 160. So there's some support at 160. So if you're looking to buy, it's probably support at 160 level.
How about resistance? Is there any imminent resistance?
Actually, there was a really big resistance level at 170, so it went
Mm.
above that. So it's absorbed the supply of the old holders at about 170. So I think that's a bullish sign psychologically for the market. It was absorbed. So just
And
fine.
how about MPI?
MPI looks like it's just going to be range bound here in the near term from 390 to 353. Uh, it's still slightly above the 200-day MA. So in the long term, it's still in an uptrend, just a little, just barely three, at three, since the 200-day MA is 373. So yeah.
Okay, so far we don't have a lot of questions yet, no, but we have one from Hyperbots. Why aren't we positive with Meg after all this good news and the stock is at its low?
Hmm. Yeah, siguro for Meg because it's because of their portfolio, their asset portfolio nila and their yung yung sources ng cash flows nila. So a huge portion of their cash flows are sourced from their office portfolio. And we expect occupancy rates to remain challenged at least for this year, uh, because of the persistent work from home setup, and because BPOs are now allowed to retain their 100% work from home setup. Kasi nga yung registration nila can now be transferred from PEZA to BOI. So that's one of the major headwinds for the office sector. And you can see na across the board na medyo mataas pa rin, elevated pa rin yung vacancy rates across business districts. So yun for Meg, so kaya we are more positive now on property companies who that derive a significant portion of their cash flows from retail, from malls, kasi we think malls will continue to outperform at least for this year among property subsectors. So that's why we're still not positive on Meg, and I think being booted out of the index should might reduce the following on the stock. So kasi I mean index companies, ang one of the criteria is that they should retain a certain level of liquidity. So since outside na sila ng index, so it might reduce the following. So that might be also one of the things that might create an overhang on the stock.
Yeah. Then apart from that, although I haven't seen much news on Meg actually, so I hope Hyperbots you can provide us with some of the news. Although we did see Mega World, they have been active in their share buyback program. So parang pretty much every day that we see share buybacks. So how do you see these share buybacks? Not only for Meg but also for the rest of the stocks.
Actually, there's an article I read na yung share buybacks are not really all positive, no? Kasi I mean, the budget that is allocated for share buyback, that's parang siguro like free cash by the company. And kapag wala silang makitang attractive na investment sa sector, they just choose to buy their own stock. So that's also yung mga companies na lagi nag-extend ng share buyback or malaking share buyback, that is suggested na wala silang makitang attractive na investment dun sa sector, na they're not planning to launch more projects kasi they're not seeing very strong demand. So the share buyback might support the share price, but it's not all positive. It means wala masyadong attractive na investment dun sa sector. So there.
What about you, Bess? What do you think about these share buybacks?
Well, basically Herman said everything. Although this is good for in terms of supporting the share price, and also since they are creating treasury shares, it will have a positive effect on the EPS. Um, on a more long term view, yeah, that's indicative that they can find so far no other better use for their cash. And also in general, the property sector, we're not very bullish on it, so that's kind of why we're negative on Meg. And one of the, I don't know if Erman has a different view, but um one of the maybe catalysts for a recovery for the property sector is uh more interest in mortgage loans. If the office sector is not performing very well, they can. I think other property companies are leaning more into the residential. Is that correct? Am I assessment?
In terms of project launches, mas
Yes.
marami sa residential. Yeah, correct.
Yes, and what I noticed is it's more of on the
Yeah.
luxury property side. So, um, if more if more lending in terms of the banks, more they're more able to lend towards um, more of these residential mortgages. Um, that could be uh, a catalyst for the property sector. Unfortunately, since interest rates are rising, that's also one of the that could be also one of the reasons why that sector is not doing well. So since financing the financing large scale purchases like homes or even for corporates investing in property for their own expansions, it's not very cost effective to do that right now with the cost of funding increasing over the past few months or even past few years. um, that's also one of the things that is holding back the sector. I think you have a few questions.
Yeah.
From Johannes Camilon, what's your insight on NPI investing in SPNEC? We discussed this earlier, so maybe if you can remind your bar at the bottom, you can do that. Um, from Novi Nori Kasim, can you give us your insight about ICT? They just gave us a generous dividend. Is it good to add more shares and worth to hold on to the stock? So actually, ICT we are bullish on ICT still. Um, uh, Although there may be some headwinds this year, because of the possible threat of slowdown in economic growth, which global economic growth, which would reduce uh, global trade, which would reduce the the business that ICT would be able to do. Um, in the past few years, ICT has been able to increase its yield per TEU, or the amount of revenues it gets for every unit of container unit that they are transferring, they're keeping in storage for their customers. That and that's Their margins are rising. That's why they were able to give very generous dividends in not just recently but also in the previous period. Uh, so far for the first quarter, they gave indications of positive for the first. Well, no, not that good, not as good as in 2022 for the first month, but getting better in the second month. So we'll see for the balance of the first quarter. But um, yeah, we it ICT recently just consolidated uh, the Manila North Harbor Port, which added to their volume. So um, that's also a a driver for their growth, not just last year but this year as well, since they will be able to recognize a full year impact of that additional volume this year. And also there may be, or although of course this is not guaranteed, there may be some um, adjustments in their uh, on their pricing, on on the pricing that they charge their customers. So um, that could be also a source of growth for ICT. So we're still bullish on ICT, um, even though yeah, you have already seen a lot of the growth in the stock, not just in the stock price, but also in the dividend that they pay out.
Siguro, I just want to add something kasi may nagtanong on the MPI
Okay.
SPNIC. Siguro, one thing I can add is that yung confidence ni MPI to invest on SPNIC, you can get a sense of it from the manner of the purchase. Kasi the purchase was via cash and instead of shares. So, di ba, there are two methods wherein you can purchase something. It's pwedeng property for share or cash. So ang ginawa or I mean pwedeng binili niya si Spinec in exchange for NPI shares din eh. 'Di ba? So pwedeng ganun, share for share or pwedeng cash. So, ang kapag share for share, that means ano eh, parang pwedeng it is indicative na pwedeng hindi siya ganun ka-confident dun sa company na pinag-investan niya kasi let's say if the investment doesn't turn out well, yung loss will be shared by a larger shareholder base. Whereas let's say kung and then on the flip side kapag successful naman yung investment, yung gain will be shared din by a larger shareholder base. Pero kung cash yung pinambili, which is what happened in this case, yung gain from the investment will benefit, kumbaga MPI will receive the full benefit kasi cash yung pinambili niya instead of enlarging yung shareholder base. So one thing na can tell us about the confidence of the investor is the manner of the purchase. And in this case, since it's a cash purchase, we think MPI is confident with its investment in SPNX.
Next question, or do you want to give a technical insight on ICT?
Oh, you want to say
ICT.
ICT? So the chart. So the chart of ICT is a very, very bullish chart.
Very, very double very.
Oh, double very, very bullish chart. So as you can see, it's consolidating near the highs. So it's looking technically like a buy and weakness. There you go.
And our target price for ICT is
Are
around
we public?
Pwede ba sabihin?
this is
Upside.
upside
I guess we can share the
is I
upside.
think mga mid-teens.
Okay. For a follow up under an MPI, Olga, Tehera, low button. Sorry, my eyesight is worsening. Which has more upside? MPI or SPNX?
Yeah, for us it's still SPNX that has more upside. Kasi ayun nga, si MPI still has other regulated businesses that carries a lot of regulatory risk, whereas si SPNX is solely focused on the renewables. So yeah, in terms of upside, we see more upside when on SPNX.
And then from Reagan Mugar Lobaton, are you related to Olga Pejera? Insights on home and VLLPs.
Home and DLL.
Korean question.
Perennial.
Do you want me to go first?
Question.
Ay,
Kasi
nga
home
pala.
and
Yeah.
DLL. All right. So for All Home, I think we haven't heard much about All Home ever since November when they announced their Q3 earnings. So I guess yung stock currently has been moving. Well, later on, IC can discuss more on the technicals. But so far for All Home, I think there haven't been many news regarding All Home. But I guess many investors are on a wait and see approach on how Q4 earnings will be, especially given how the first quarter to third quarter of 2022 they've been pretty weak compared to its peer in Wilcon. Wilcon kasi has been outperforming expectations so far. Although we did see some take off in demand in Q4 for Wilcon. We're not so sure about how All Home will perform given that si Wilcon kasi mas into the hard categories. Si All Home naman, their strength lies more in the soft categories. So basically yung mga furniture. So I guess that's what we see so far for All Home. I guess, do we do technicals first or VLS? Okay, I think we're heading to technicals.
So for home, I think it's finding support here at about 230. So it's trying to swing, make a higher low here at the 230 level. Hopefully it can build a bigger reversal bottom. It's about almost how long is this? almost 6 months long. So it's looking constructive there, trying to bottom out.
Siguro for VLL, I think sales would benefit from its high exposure to OFW buyers, especially with the general weakness of the peso. Although as with home, VLL has yet to report its Q4, so we have yet to see if the expected strength will translate to Q4 earnings. Although recently, I think VLL has recovered from its recent lows, so maybe I see is
Thank you, sir.
uh,
Angela Pinchard. So VLL, I think we posted this in our group before. To me, it looks like it's trying to make a reverse head and shoulder, which is a major reversal. So if you're a bull, you don't want it to drop lower than 163. You want it to reverse higher. So far, constructive show.
okay.
Okay. Next question from Bell Arvid. What about nickel? Do you have anything to say on nickel? Or maybe we can start with technicals.
Well, nickel retraced back to what's the support level. So it's basically sideways at the 631 support level. Uh, bulls will want to see it hold above the 200-day at 602. So it's a chance to rally. They can just hold the support level 631. Okay.
On a
Take it away.
on a fundamental view, we are actually bullish on nickel. We are recommending a pwede ba sabihin? We are recommending a buy on nickel. Mainly um, compared to 20, compared to the first half of last year, nickel prices are still high even if they have fallen in more recent weeks. So that's a positive for nickel as well as um, they're benefiting from a recovery of China. So now that China has fully reopened, especially compared to uh, when they still had COVID lockdowns last year, and so that's one of the drivers for nickel's growth. And I think they also have an energy unit which we expect to be profitable this year. So those are the three main reasons why we're actually bullish on nickel. No, I think that.
Next
Okay.
question.
Next question from Angela Natividad. Um,
Wait,
how many?
Angela.
Yeah. Hello. Hi. How many more rate hikes do you expect from the BSP this year? So far in this rate hike cycle, the BSP has increased by 425 basis points from May last year. That's actually quite steep. And um of course, we will all be looking forward to the inflation report that will be out April 5. So it will depend on that, on what the BSP will do next. It will depend on inflation. It will depend on what the Fed will do. So I think at least one more, because I don't think inflation will 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 ease that much in the second quarter. Inflation will probably ease more in the second half of this year. So um, that's one thing that we look forward to, know the inflation report next week. That will determine whether the BSP will start to lay off on the rate hikes. But that pause is probably coming soon. Um,
So at least one. At least one.
Yeah, at least.
I think one na lang din.
One na lang din.
Although of course we can't say for sure, and it will still be dependent on how core inflation is, especially not just the headline inflation number on April 5, but the core inflation number, which is more indicative of a long-term trend for prices. So in the last inflation report, although we did see inflation headline inflation easing by 0.1 percentage point compared to the previous month, core inflation is still accelerating. So that's why they still increased the policy rate, not just because of not just because they're following what the Fed did. The next BSP Monetary Board meeting there will be one in May, and there will be one in June. The May one, that their decision, as well as depending on inflation, will also depend on how first quarter GDP will go, which will also be announced in May. So I think GDP will be announced before the monetary board meeting. So those are the things that the BSP is balancing now. How much the rate hike so far has affected GDP growth, because rate hikes has a 6 to 12 month lag. So the effect on GDP growth will start showing up in first quarter GDP for this year. So if GDP for the first quarter misses the government targets by a lot, that's probably an indication that the BSP might pause on their rate hikes. Next question from Nori Kasim again. How about Seb?
Okay. Okay.
Seb just recently released profit.
Yeah. And I'm not sure. I think this will be our last question. So thank you again, sorry for the question. So for Seb, recently announced their earnings, and given what was said earlier, in terms of the passenger numbers, it has been recovering well, and the issue or the headwinds still are still around. So, for example, we're seeing high jet fuel prices. Not even if mas mababa na yung nakikita natin in terms of the retail prices. Jet fuel remains high, given the reopening and the demand that is still there. And recently, it has been trending upwards. And at the same time, for Forex, si Cebu Pacific kasi two-thirds of their costs are USD denominated. So, for example, if you compare it to 2021, nasa 50 pesos per 50 pesos per USD. Tapos tumaas siya ng 55. So 10% higher yung mga cost nila. So mas masaka talaga when it comes to for Seb. And if we compare it actually, if we take out these headwinds, so medyo ceteris paribus, in Q4, I guess Seb would have, if we compare it to 2019, medyo like yung 2022 jet fuel prices, tapos yung USD, same as 2019, maybe Q4 for Seb would have been a profit. Pero kasi they have these headwinds that turned out to causing Seb to have a net loss of 2 billion. And since so far this year, so we're ending Q1, and there haven't been much improvements when it comes to yung USD to PHP, and at the same time, yung sa jet fuel prices. So we might see more of the same na medyo mahihirapan si Cebu Pacific to return to their pre-pandemic levels.
I mean, do we still have time to discuss yung implications niya kay SEBCP?
Oh, okay. For SEBCP, I'm not sure if everyone can recall si SEBCP kasi yung convertible preferreds ni Cebu Pacific, wherein they will be able to provide dividends for the holders. Actually, this was parang SRO din, si SEBCP. Supposedly the rate would be at 6%. Tapos since si SEBCP, they are unable to provide dividends so far kasi SEB has still been operating at a loss. Tapos they are only able to provide dividends once naging positive na retained earnings nila. Pero given what you're seeing so far na negative pa rin yung nila, net earnings nila. So it might take more time before SEBCP will be able to provide dividends. So yung ano naman, I guess yung upside doon is yung 6% na yun, hindi naman siya baliwala na lang to since 2021. So nako-compound siya. So kumbaga, na-accumulate siya. So yung 6% in 2021, 6% in 2022, and 6% probably for 2023 will be paid out once they are able to already. So maybe 2024, 2025, depending on yun, how these headwinds will turn out. And uh, ano naman, we're pretty confident that passenger numbers will continue to recover and start to normalize to pre-pandemic levels, especially when international travel comes back to normal, which may happen in the second half of the year.
And would you know, kunyari, let's say, yung years na yun na hindi nagbabayad ng dividends, di ba? And let's say, ako as a sub-CP holder ako for 1 year, and then binenta ko siya, and then once the company becomes profitable, will I be entitled to 1 year worth of dividends? Or would you?
That's a good question. I think I was able to confirm this, but I'll try to confirm it again. Based on what I know so far, again, this might change. Pero ang alam ko is whoever holds SEBCP once they announce. So, ang laki nun. So, kung 2024 man siya mag-announce, so baka 18 to 24% yung maging yield niya.
So let's say kung bumili ako ngayon, bukas mag-announce, I'll be entitled to 3 years.
Yeah, I think ganun yung setup niya. I have to review and check, but I think ganun yung setup eh. Okay.
So, 2024.
So, ayun.
Watch the SEBCP 2024.
Yeah, it will depend naman on SEB's performance, especially on their cash levels, if they are able to already. So hopefully, yun nga, jet fuel prices and forex will be more favorable for the company.
And to close, maybe a technical perspective.
So, well, as you can see, this the chart here. This is long downtrend line for Cebu Pacific, showing clear sellers appearing at these levels. So it's really looking like a sell and rally near the 44 level. So shall wake me up when it gets above 44.
Okay, so that was our last question for today. So if you have more questions, don't worry. We have this session every 2 weeks. So our next one will be after Holy Week na. So
And
April 14, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So just tune in, guys. When will we be having these sessions again? And thank you so much for taking your time to ask questions and listen to our insights. I guess we have the next 2 weeks that we have the holidays. I hope you guys will have a restful holidays ahead, and tune into the market again and keep those questions and see you guys on the next one. Thank you.
bye.
Bye.